Hi, this is Jan Nicholson. I directed Shock to the System quite a while ago now, but it's really a kick to revisit it. It was a lot of fun to make. It had its challenges, as all films do, but it had Michael Caine. It had a terrific script, a great concept, and I had a great group of people to work with to make it. Certainly, the cast was fantastic. Elizabeth McGovern, Peter Riegert, they were really a great team. Susie Kurtz. You know, there are a lot of folks in the film who film was to find the tone for it. You know, it's a black comedy, and black comedies are notoriously tricky to kind of walk a fine line between, well, the blackness and the comic. And as it originally was conceived, it was a much darker piece. But as you can see, Michael really embodies both that, the darkness and the drama, which he's great at, but he has a terrific sense of fun and a great sense of the macabre. And without him, this film really would be nothing.
What do I know? They just keep blowing.
The circuit is overloaded.
You can see there's a lot of camera movement in the film. On a couple of films together. So when we came to this one, we had a common language. We had a way of working together, which was really a delight. And as I say, we decided that we wanted to keep the camera moving. We didn't want to do it handheld, so we used, pretty heavy equipment to do it. This is all shot on a Lumicrane with the arm of the crane stuck through a window, the dining room window right there, just so that even here, we're kind of trying to get a little feel for films from the 50s and 60s. I had kind of gone back when I was preparing the film and looked at a lot of films about American experience in business, like The Man in the Gray Flannel Suit. And that was an era that really interested me and seemed to have a lot of resonance in when we made the film. So we tried to have a very composed look and at the same time have the camera move a lot. And that's why the equipment we chose, like the Lumicrane, shooting everything on a dolly, not handheld. That's why Paul chose to do a lot of that. There's the Lumicrane shot you can see coming out of the house. There you go. So that was really the key, that sense of power, the loss of power. It's something that Alice Arlen picked up on. She did a very extensive rewrite. She did all the voiceover that we did as we were putting the film together in the editing room. And she really, I think, found the core of the film. She really picked up that it was about power and the diminution of power. And she was able to kind of ride with Michael on that and the disappointment of this man who's worked so hard and strived so hard and finds his world crumbling around him. And all of the sorcerer, the power motif that comes into it is really her contribution, and I think deepens the film and gives it just a level that the original adventure didn't have. John Dunn was a terrific designer. You notice here, these guys are in very light suits, and as the film goes on, all of the clothing darkens in tone as the film darkens in tone. We really tried to have an overall design and a pattern to the film. so that things at the beginning are much lighter and airier, the costumes are brighter, and as the film goes along, things across the board darken. There's the Luma crane again, trying to get a lot of that movement. So we would often park the crane inside instead of using it outside, as is more conventionally done. But this is all Luma crane work.
Hey, buddy, give me a buck, will you? What do you make? $1 million a year? Yeah, that'll do it.
City's getting to be like Calcutta.
Yeah, Alice got associate producer credit. Of course, these things are, done by the WGA, and but his first film role. He was great. He came in, he read for it. It was an extended sequence that unfortunately got cut out, but there he is. I'm very proud to have him in the film. So the office building they're going into is something that we built entirely, not the lobby here. The lobby's uptown, but the office itself we built from scratch. It's mostly glass, making it very difficult to light and difficult to photograph, but making a broad area for us to move around in and making things visible from character to character. So I could stage the action within offices, but have a sense of openness and a sense of connection between the characters. It was also built to be very large so that we could move the camera. It's always on a dolly. It's not handheld, but as you can see, it's moving around with a tremendous fluidity. Rolling on the floor, we built the floor so we could roll on the floor, and tried to choreograph things so that the camera would bring us from location to location, from office to office. And again, there you can see a good example of the glass walls that did, as I say, make it very difficult to light. But once it was lit, we could really shoot with a lot of freedom in this space. So there's a huge shot, right? It's 360 degrees.
I don't know how to play this person. I don't know who she is.
It's not a role, it's a job, a rent-paying job. Now, come on.
So here you go again. You can see the camera just moving through the space and making it as fluid as we possibly could, trying to energize the whole beginning of it.
Graham, hi.
Excuse me a moment, sir.
Have a look at this. The number crunchers designed it, but the thinking basically is mine.
And here you begin to get the motif of the slats and the blinds and the city behind him. So we worked very hard on the windows to balance everything so that you could always see out, see the backdrop of the city. It's Wall Street, we're downtown Manhattan, and really try and set the drama where it should be, in the heart of the financial world.
Introduce you to Melanie O'Connor. Do you remember I told you about her, my roommate?
Mr. Marshall, I just want to take this opportunity to thank you for the job.
I'm sure you'll do just fine. Stella will take you over to personnel, and she'll put you to work, okay?
My resume.
Of being in the world of this office without getting stuck into a corner of an office. And that was a big challenge that Peter and Michael had a great time together. And they're both great raconteurs, great storytellers. Peter was So there you go. There's one of the kind of iconic shots we were trying to get with the city behind him at his desk, and again, by shooting through the glass walls of the offices.
He's got an outgoing personality. And congratulations. I heard you're going to replace Mr. Brewster. It's about time.
Yes, I guess it is at that.
So again, having him swivel in the chair like that, or trying to kind of get the two faces of Michael.
For not letting her live with us.
We're kind of playing around with slow motion stuff, trying to underscore just little moments of behavior between these guys, just trying to bring to life that world and the way these guys bonded.
Tara's coming out to the house.
Tara? What kind of a name is that?
Her last name is Raboom Die.
So Michael was always the leader of this group, and as a character and as an actor, and always kind of emboldened people to take risks, to have fun, and to keep things loose. It's another reason why we really wanted to shoot it with the camera moving a lot. Michael was so comfortable, so at ease, being the great actor that he is, that we could run scenes as long sections, long takes. And Michael was very, very comfortable doing that, and he loved doing it. And it energized him, and I think energized everybody around him.
Very sad. God bless and keep the old-fashioned family.
Here, here.
Existed, and just kind of point out some of the discrepancies in the world. I think the first big ad in the New York Times was two and want to make sure that we had in the film. I love the way Howard built these offices. They're kind of stepped out so that, as you can see, nothing lines up, and it means you can always see, again, down hallways. You can always see people in the background. And again, you can always get these shots of these figures against the buildings outside, against the financial world, and yet be very intimate. And the blinds obviously served a couple of functions. They were for lighting, so we could control the light. So Paul could very easily have general lighting and then control the light from the windows as the day progressed, the sun moved around. But also so that we could put some kind of shape behind the actors or in front of them. So here you'll see it's behind him, but soon he's going to turn and we'll be
Kidding me.
Sorry, Greg.
Those assholes. I don't believe this. Those fucking assholes.
Whole new ball game, pal.
Who got it, George? Who's the new head?
Oh, that. Benham. Robert Benham.
Bannon.
Hail the conquering hero. God help us all.
That's the shot. So we're kind of building up to that shot. And, a lot of the way I think and try and make films is to make them from the end towards the front. That is, you know what you're aiming at, you know what you're going for. And that look of Michael through the glass partition there was very much the point of that whole opening sequence, was to get to that moment. And so this was an interesting sequence. There's another piece on the Blu-ray you can take a look at about the ending and the setup for the ending and finding the tone of the film. But certainly this was a big moment for me in trying to figure out exactly how to hit the tone of a black comedy. And when we were down scouting in the subway and trying to figure out how to do this stunt with a guy getting hit by the train, there were a lot of mechanical questions. Okay, are we going to throw a dummy? How are we going to do it? Right here, how does this happen? What does he actually fall on? How do we make this shot? But the most important thing was learning that as the train barrels through the station, it's going to send the guy 300 yards ahead of the train, so that when Michael looks down, having pushed the guy, in fact, there's nothing there. And when I learned that, the transit cops explained to me how this would work, I realized that in fact was the tone of the film. That, yeah, he killed somebody, but there's no blood, there's no body. He gets away with it. And that's really what makes the sequence work. And that's what taught me, oh, that's the tone of this film. If you see him as a bloody murderer, it's really a problem. You can never recover from that. But if he's learning that he can kill and get away with it and enjoy it, and if we enjoy it, then we're on his side. And that was really the task of the film, was to keep the audience on Michael's side all the time. You have Michael Caine, so he's doing that and working very hard to do that, and would often, as we were working, come to me and say, we've gotten very serious here. I need a little moment where I can lighten up just to make sure people are still with me. He was very, very aware of how the audience would be reading his performance, and that obviously for a director is a godsend. Little moments like that, where Michael is really just electric and so attuned. Again, there's another shots we're trying to get at the city, trying to get at the world, trying to really place the film in a real context. There was a lot of difficulty in making the film, in really harnessing everybody to understand what the tone of the film was, and to get the audience so that they would stick with this guy. If what Michael really clued into. So in doing all of these scenes, we're really trying to look ahead to the ending. Where are we going to go? Where are we taking the audience? So here, we're calibrating it. He's very fraught. He's scared. He's just killed someone, after all, and gotten away with it. But he's going to learn that it's something that he likes to do, and likes to do in a way that we all maybe have fantasies, obviously, of power, of revenge, of getting back, of just moving ahead, of not being beaten down by the world. And Michael found a way to calibrate that. So as we go along from sequence to sequence, he becomes more and more comfortable with this new self. Yeah, so here we're kind of using the Dutch dangles and trying to make the world begin to be a little bit out of whack, right? Because for our guy, for Graham, it is out of whack. Susie was, again, I say a comic actress. What I mean is that they really have tremendous Again, having the glass allowed us to keep everyone on stage. So you saw Stella in the background there, and just the different ways we could see things. Here again, we're using the Venetian blind to kind of separate Michael from us now.
I suppose if we were rival princes, I could just have you killed. Save a lot of politics.
It's not that easy to kill someone and get away with it.
I thought instead it would be good if we could get together this weekend. Out at the house, you and Leslie, me and Tara.
Oh, the actual Tarab. Yes, that would be nice, Bob.
Yeah, there you go. These guys really and that undercurrent really it helps them. So there's the famous lighter, and the lighter later becomes a part of the plot and part of his undoing, and that was a very difficult part of the film to kind of work out. So there, more bums, kind of trying to keep that theme going here and keep Michael kind of engaged in what he's done.
God bless you.
But it never did. All he felt was good, clean, free. As if he'd taken a 1,000-pound load off his back.
This was a lot of fun to do. I remember Paul really trying to experiment with different colored light and to give this scene some pop. There you can kind of see that, what would you call that, kind of reddish magenta with a lot of green. Paul liked to take colors that just didn't mix and put them in the space. And it does give the whole sequence a very wonderful kind of electric feel. So it was always a delight to kind of, we'd rehearse and Paul would get to work and do his lighting, and we'd come back and suddenly, there you go, suddenly things just began to pop. And a lot of that is Paul's use of color.
A light beer with a twist for mine.
No, the scotch will be fine. I'll have a side order of bran flakes. Who's that with Benham?
Where?
Over there.
Oh.
And he was also, Paul was very aware of making people look good. So there's Michael. He looks good. And he really knew how to make a close-up and make it play. But there's something very playful and wonderful about his lighting that always just thrilled me. And it's also, it has a real effect on the set in the way actors are working. And all of these technical things actually send a message to the actors as to kind of what the film is going to be like and what the world is going to be like.
Oh, that's ridiculous. These things happen.
Not to her husband, it doesn't. Usually I just reach out my hand and obstacles disappear. Phew.
So that little gesture of Michael's, that kind of magical gesture, is what Alice, again, really brought to this, that this character, Graham, and Michael, was really discovering that magician, that guy who could make people disappear and make the world into what he wanted it.
Caine's fault.
I've never understood why you need a stair machine when we have stairs.
Because I have to keep going up, silly. If I had to keep going down, I'd lose the whole aerobic benefit.
It's like a computer. You're not turning it on right. You turn it on like this.
Well, that's very impressive, Mr. Einstein. But aren't you supposed to scream booga booga or something?
Fuck!
Graham.
I think Michael really is so pleasant. It's just a great spirit, a wonderful, as they say, kind of and just kind of stunning when he would come on the set. He was so professional and so at ease, and we'd kind of walk through things, we'd block it out, he'd kind of walk it through, he'd be very affable. As soon as the camera was turned on, a whole different creature emerged. And what Michael really could understand in this guy was that repressed energy. And he never was judgmental about it. He really went with it, and he enjoyed it. And, of course, without that, there's no way the audience could possibly.
Important for your balance. Right? Got a hold? Now, reach out your left hand, get hold of that chain, and pull down hard.
Oh. Oh, I see. Oh, I see. And here's the fuse box right here.
So there you go. That's the evil magician practicing his art.
I didn't get the job, Leslie.
Oh, I see. So what do we do now? Just... What?
The promotion. I didn't get it.
No, of course you got
I
it.
just found this very moving. As I say, I think that for me, my father had been in the war, had come back, and actually had worked in television, worked kind of in advertising. He was a commercial artist. And I was just a very tiny young child. I think as I grew up and I began to look back on that world and understood the world that he came back to, that was really something that I wanted to have in the film. These guys who had worked hard and thought they had done everything right and just found that life wasn't offering everything that it should, and that their achievement just wasn't recognized. And that is another underpinning in the film, and something that, again, we're trying to aim at here.
Ta-da. Oh, nice to meet you. Shall we show them the ranch?
I think we have to.
Come on up.
So this was actually the first day of filming. We're out on this boat. I guess it was a good way to start, although there we were out on Long Island Sound, crammed into a sailboat, having quite a good time. It almost didn't feel like a film.
That's along on a jolly clip, too, doesn't she?
She jolly well does. By golly.
I have to say, it's not easy shooting on a sailboat, and for the crew and for me on the first day on a big film with a big movie star, it was a challenge. You know, it's a big camera, Panavision Platinum, with a big lens, and getting it down in these spaces, it was a real... He doesn't like to do a lot of takes. I think as an actor, he's very aware of his rhythm, that he's ready to go when the camera rolls, and he really expects the crew to be ready to get it and get it quickly and move on. And I really applaud that. It's a great rhythm of work. And so the crew was really challenged. The idea was we would have about 2 takes. We had to get it right. And the crew and everybody had to be ready. We all had to be ready to go. And Michael set the pace, and he kind of set the bar. And we all, I think, learned a lot, and it brought up everyone's game. I know at some point, standing around, we realized that Michael had been in more films at that point than all of us around the camera combined. So he was the guy.
Drums. Our hackers can't have the
overextend ourselves.
I think it's exciting to plan so big.
I'd like you to be at that San Francisco convention next week. That should give you the real overview of where we're headed.
What day next week?
Actually, yes.
I chair that meeting, Bob.
Well.
So again, this was at the beginning of the shoot, and since obviously films are shot out of sequence, it was really remarkable to me that I kind of first met Graham, the character, through Michael, around this table. Really got it, and as soon as I saw that, it was absolutely stunning, and I know he can do that, so I don't have to work so hard because he's going to do it, and I know that he's on top of this. So I remember after the first few days just feeling elated that Michael could contain both the charm of this man and that darker drive. He could do both, and he could switch back and forth seamlessly and instantly within a scene, actually within a take, and always keep the audience going with both of them. So if he felt like he was going too dark, as I said, he would always come to me and say, I just need a little moment to win them back. And I'd give him another take, and there it would be.
Oh, now, don't get all pitiful, Graham.
I forgive you for failing, Graham.
Graham, I forgive you for failing.
Uh-huh.
By the way, I fixed your stair stepper.
Oh, good.
So there are the two dogs. I just mentioned about the dogs. That was the setup at the beginning, and at the opening of the movie, instead of seeing the dogs, you would have seen the two little kids. That was one of the first things that I really wanted to change because as I got on the track of this film being, as I say, a black comedy, and that the motor that ran it was the audience's appreciation of Michael. If he killed the mother of his children, I just thought that would never work. That I always had to find the line where the audience would enjoy what he did, be slightly horrified by it, but really want to go with it. And killing the mother of your children is kind of tough. So the kids were replaced with a dog, two dogs for two kids. And I think there are a lot of choices along the way that do that. It's certainly what I was always looking for, what Howard, the production designer, what Paul was always looking for. How could we walk that line? So here's an example where Paul's lighting him from below. Not the most flattering look. It's not something you usually do. But in intercutting it with Swoosie down here in the basement and the machinations of his plot, lighting him from below is really a very, very smart move. And again, Paul was very, very tuned in to finding this same balance of the comic and the blackness. And there are many, many small choices like that that really do it. Yeah, here's another little sequence with the camera continually changing angles. You'll see on Michael.
An accident?
Yes. I'm very sorry.
Oh, my God. What a shock.
Aren't you going to say something?
Yes, of course. Dearest Leslie, your mother and I have brought you to this spot to share this last private, this moment of grief and pain.
Yeah, I think when I was reading the script and I got to this, the original script, and the kids were there, I thought, that's not going to be a good moment for the audience. Dogs are fine, but not so much the kids. Yeah, Michael loved doing that.
Abracadabra. Shalikazam.
So here comes Will Patton, a fabulous actor, someone I revered, a wonderful New York stage actor, and just a great spirit playing the detective. A little unusual casting, I think, and but really effective. These two had very different rhythms of working. Will liked to feel his way into things rather slowly. He kind of would begin to get working when the camera rolled. That was kind of the way he worked. And he was used to being on movie sets where he would do a lot of takes. In fact, I think he'd just come off a film with Deborah Winger and Nick Nolte. I'm not sure who was directing it, but he took me aside and said, we never, ever do less than 20 takes. And I said, well, Will, here's the thing. Michael likes to do 2, so we're going to have to find some way of negotiating this. It was difficult. I would try a lot of tricks. I'd rehearse with Will a lot with the camera. I would shoot Michael first so that Will would get extra runs at it. And after a while, they worked it out. But they really had a very, very different performing energy, something that often happens in films with actors who just have different interior ways of working. But he's a lovely, lovely actor. And it was just a treat to have somebody playing the part who you might not right out of the box think of being as, a detective.
A little time to myself.
Oh, absolutely. I just wanted to clear that up. You go ahead and let the grieving process happen.
Thank you.
When the red robin comes bumping along.
So I kind of can't resist here. When we were shooting this at a loft down on Worcester Street in New York City, it was a big space. It has some big windows. A little bit later, you'll see a scene shot in here at night. The guys were rigging up on the roof, hanging stuff over the front of the building, and one night something got loose, and I think a big frame off one of the 12Ks fell down, and it went through the skylight of a neighboring building, which was bad enough, but unfortunately it fell into the apartment of the head of the film commission.
Sorry, I didn't get to send you a card yet about your wife. Has Bobby gotten here yet?
Yes, but he's in his...
So now we're getting into the part of the film in the middle where a lot of the filmmaking decisions became more difficult because I was very much guiding the film towards an ending where Michael essentially gets away with everything he does. That, to me, was the point of the film. And I have to say it was for Michael, too, that very much he was drawn to the project and I was drawn to the project because the point was to show this man, as I say, embrace his feelings of power, to exercise them, and to act on them in a way that the audience could relate to. They're not going to go out and kill anybody. Away with it. There were a lot of other forces at work as we were making the film. A thought that, well, maybe morally had to be arrested at the end, and I just knew that that was never going to work. And I'm very much trying to set up his killing is real, yes. I mean, in the film, he does kill his wife, he does kill these people, but there's no mayhem, there's no blood, there's no bodies, there's none of that you would find in a horror film. Instead, really trying to keep the audience focused on the inner life of this guy and his growing realization that, yeah, there's a part of him that has been neglected, and now it's going to come out.
Bob Benham would just write her off as a loser, which is why you didn't get George's job. Because you wouldn't treat people the way they do.
You know, you're very perceptive. You talk about people, and you listen to other people talk, but you never talk about yourself.
We struggled to make that shot. That's a very, very long telephoto shot outside Lincoln Center in Manhattan, Midtown Manhattan. That was tough.
Good night.
The world, as they say, had become his oyster. Now he was going to pry it open.
So you can see the film is actually darkening, and all the choices in there, the mist on the buildings, all of this stuff. Here's another example of Michael, and when he came on the set that day, he always would come on, as they say, he was a very affable guy and full of energy, and usually begin the day with a couple of jokes and some stories. And this day he came on, he was pretty grouchy, and I really noticed it. I thought, oh gosh, I wonder what's happened. And we, laid out the scene.
What the fuck are you doing in my office?
Bob just felt it was crazy not to have a computer in here.
It's not the computer, it's you and your goddamn desk.
There you go. So what I realized when the cameras were rolling was Michael was doing his work, and he could really access that anger and bring it to bear. So again, a lot of the point of building that office that way and having floors that we can roll on with no track so that the camera is very, very free to move around was to always track the energy of Michael, to kind of keep it going, keep up with him, let him drive it, and have that be what's setting the tone of the film and the energy of the film.
Excuse us, this will just be a second.
I have to run anyway. You'll get the estimates.
That decorator is harder to get an appointment with than the mayor. Tell me this is about something.
There is a man in my office.
I thought it'd be more efficient to have you and Henry working closely together.
It is my office. It is the assistant chief's office.
It's still your office.
Why don't you bring Henry Park in here, huh?
That's entirely...
Why don't you bring Melanie in to make sure the phone gets answered? Hell, we could bring in the whole goddamn New York Knicks just to make sure your trash hits the basket. How's that?
If I thought I needed an assistant to do my job...
Meaning what? That I don't do my job? Then why don't you have me removed, Bobby boy?
Because you're too senior in the company to be fired for anything less than gross insubordination.
So you've decided to have me removed piece by piece. A privilege here, a responsibility there. Never enough to fight over. Just a subtle drain of power, right? Well, let me tell you something, Bobster. You don't know the first fucking thing about power. I have more power in this hand than all you fucking know.
Well, there you go. Well, that shut me up, and I remember it did at the time. I mean, again, Michael was the guy who only liked to do a take or two. I'm pretty sure that was take one. And when he was there, he was totally there. And it was riveting. There you go. There's that lighting of Paul's again, green and kind of blue. Colors that don't mix. So it is a little odd to see the grain in this shot. To me, it's a beautiful thing. It's film, obviously, and digital images don't do that. It just has this really lovely texture to it. But again, so here we've got yellow and green going on. Here's yellow in the background, green on the top, and red on their faces, and it was just the kind of thing that Paul gravitated to. And it's really taking the film, making it darker, making it uneasy. These colors don't blend, and that's really the point here. It's really interesting to me. Not only is Paul's work just loose and reactive, that is, he's very tuned in to what's going on in the moment, what's going on with the actors, but his lighting is too. And you'll notice also that in these shots, the camera is often moving from very wide shots to tighter shots, like that one. So rather than breaking things up with cuts, we're moving the camera from wide to close to wide. That puts a huge burden on the lighting guys to provide illumination that's general enough that I can get the camera moving, but it's specific enough so that things look really good and create exactly the right mood. And that's something that Paul and his crew could really do. And for me, it made my work and my job of working with Michael, of getting that performance and keeping it energized, a treat.
Have a good year, George.
Yeah, here we are. This is the famous night when they dropped the equipment through the skylight.
Bob the Bob Man. The Bobster. The bad Bobby.
That's what I really liked about working with Paul. Kind of come up to the set at night and walk in, and it's completely dark. And so it's never hitting a light. Same in this office, as you notice. There are no light stands. You know, it's odd to be talking kind of technically, but the point is that that is the style of the film. And, of course, with movies, the technicality and the aesthetic are the same. And the fact, look at that shot. So that's about 300 degrees without a lighting instrument in sight. And the fact that I could come in there with the actors at the beginning of the day, move them around the space, make the shots, and get the movie done was kind of a miracle. It also energizes everybody, and I think both Paul and I really as you can see, she looks great. And Paul was always about making people in just the right way look good.
I would very much like to see this report we've been working on.
Well, I don't know. Bob told me to bring it out this weekend so we can have a first look at it. He wants it all hush-hush.
Well, the thing is, Henry, this isn't Bob's office. It's mine. And as my name is going to be on that report, I would like to see it.
Maybe you should talk to Bob.
No, maybe you should talk to Bob. Because gross insubordination could be the cause for your dismissal. And I am asking you to show me that report.
I don't know. It's hard not to get a kick out of Michael. I think that he, when he understood what this film was going to be and where he could go with it, he just had a good time every day. And it shows.
Hello. Dr. Sims, please. My name is George Brewster. Abracadabra, shalakazam, bye-bye, baby, boom.
So again, there's that motif in there of magic and power. And that was, I think, the second level of the film. So the first level of the film was very much about a guy, again, in a world of greed and a world of money and a world of power, being thwarted and kind of unleashing the forces to get where he wanted to go. But the other deeper story is about a man feeling the diminution of his power and finding suddenly a way to retrieve it, to get it back. And the moments of the film that really sing are the moments where Michael is reveling in that. And again, that was the wonderful lineup in the constellation of the stars here, that Alice Arlen's perception that was the heart of the story, and Michael's pleasure in playing that, together with Paul Goldsmith and the cinematography, with this tremendously fluid way of working. All the these shots that seem a little rotating camera, little moving camera, very hard to do, and very expressive, and very much tuned. See, there you go, it's still going, and very much connected to Michael's feeling.
Yeah. I'd like to rent a car Saturday. Yeah. My name is George Brewster. I'm at the Gift Building. Yeah.
So there's Paul being playful, and I think, responding to Michael's sense of fun.
Very far away.
But I just can't afford it. Listen, Graham, they're your kids.
Getting more into the procedural part. How is he going to do stuff, and how is he going to make it happen? And there's the famous lighter. There are endless conversations about the lighter. I was trying to figure out how to, as I say, to aim at that bullseye at the end of Michael almost being caught, but not being caught, and ultimately getting away with it. The lighter was always the McGovern, the thing that, well, the audience is supposed to track, but we don't really care about it. It doesn't really matter. This is what we care about, is the two of them and this right there, the magic. So even though, yeah, this is the setup so he can kill Benham and all the things, the moves that he has to make in the apartment to do it, the glasses of wine, the lighter, the this, the that. You know, those things really aren't so important. I think what the audience is enjoying is seeing this guy get the girl, get the job, and working his way back up. And that's what we're trying to hold the audience's attention with. At the same time, you know, we have to kind of pay off the mechanics of the plot. When we were making the film, there were kind of two teams. There was the, how shall I say, there was the team, the producing team, who wanted to make sure that all of those things were in place, the pills and the wine and the cigarette lighter and the credit cards and all the things that narratively you need to make the story spin. And then there was Michael and myself, Paul, Howard, and the others trying to create a world of pleasure in this man and pleasure in that discovery of his power. There you go. So it's the little moments like that.
White wine? You're so beautiful, Stella. After this.
After this.
So there you get some of that strange lighting color again, even in the car. Paul is always playing with color. Actually, I said earlier that the sailboat was the first day. It was the first day, but not sailing. The first day was this, inside the sailboat at night, and a really crazy thing to do on the first day of the shoot. Watching it this time, I'm reminded that, in fact, there was supposed to be an added problem in the boat. There was supposed to be a raccoon in the boat that interfered with him doing this, so that while he's trying to set up this explosion, he's being harassed by a raccoon. Well, you know, like in all films, you look for specialists and you hire animal wranglers, and they all said, oh, raccoons, no problem. We have a trained raccoon. We can put him in the boat. Well, first of all, there is no such thing as a trained raccoon, and putting a raccoon in a small boat is really a mistake. They don't like water. They're terrified. This raccoon instantly got lost somewhere back in a bulkhead of the boat. We were all terrified to go in there because you could hear it hissing and scratching back there. Michael didn't want to go in there. So here's my first day on this huge movie with a big movie star trying to persuade Michael Caine to go into the hold of this little boat with an insane raccoon. You'll notice that there is no raccoon in the footage that you see, and that's because we could not control the raccoon. And, of course, the animal wranglers could not control the raccoon. No one could control it. So we shot the whole scene with this creature kind of hissing and scratching in the background and just trying to spend as little time as possible as we could inside the boat. It was a great introduction to filming with Michael. He was wonderful. And, yeah, here's another example. This is my favorite car, Morgan. This sequence, of course, we're going to go out in Long Island Sound and blow up a boat. So once again, I don't know how to blow up boats. I'm a film director, and of course we hire a bunch of guys who assure us that if we buy this boat for tens of thousands of dollars and we sail it out in Long Island Sound, that they can blow it up. Well, I had no doubt they could blow it up. They looked like they could blow it up. The problem was I wanted it to blow up slowly. I didn't want a huge explosion for a couple of reasons. One is I thought, well, this guy is an amateur. He's rigged up something with a gas stove. Wouldn't it be nice just to have enough of cameras all around the bay there out on that jetty. And the little boat sails out there, and they're trying to keep it stationary. There's nobody on it, obviously. They're going to blow it up. But they have to have the sails up. This is not easy to do. And sure enough, it gets out there, and we're ready to go. He pushes the top. And boom. Well, the boat is gone in about 1 second. Because it was full of explosives and gas. It's obviously double cut, and we used every inch of footage we had to extend it to kind of slow down the explosion. These guys really like to blow stuff up, and I think my saying, could it be smaller, was really not what they wanted to hear. But it works.
He felt like one of those gods who appear to maidens in human form. He knew he'd been great.
That's what always happens when people fall in love.
Ah, Stella, such a sweet girl, really.
Or didn't you think magicians could fall in love?
He'd have to be...
So I guess I have to reveal that is not Michael Caine. That is Michael Standen. That little piece of footage was shot a couple of months after principal photography, and in that case, Michael wasn't available, but his stand-in, who walked just like him, and from the back, you really could not.
In a freakish accident off the Connecticut shoreline this morning, a privately owned sailboat burst into flames and sank. We spoke to Police Lieutenant Larry Laker at the scene this afternoon.
Lieutenant, what exactly happened here?
The boat, Tara's Dream, was demolished. So it's going to be very hard to determine a precise cause of the explosion. The investigation is continuing. The investigation is continuing. I always say that.
In Midtown
What can I
late this
say?
afternoon, a
We're
terror
tired,
attack
we
cab
have no clues.
demonstrators
Fuck it.
protested.
You mind? I hate watching myself. What do you think?
Well, for a start, I think I need a new doorman.
I don't know, I get a kick out of watching these two guys together. As I say, they had very, very different rhythms as actors and a different approach to the work. And actually, I think that played to everyone's advantage. There's a kind of nice tension between the two. And it's obviously good acting. That's what they do. But it's also that these guys are just different in the way they work and in their rhythms and how they approach it. And I think you kind of sense that.
You questioning me? I mean, am I suspect?
Where were you?
I spent the night with a girl called Stella Anderson.
Am I sure?
I apologize. It's a very personal question.
Well, yes, actually, I was there. I'm sure.
We just need a witness to confirm his whereabouts.
I'm not sure why she's holding a hammer. There must be some reason, but I cannot remember. It's kind of a nice touch, though.
Bob Benham would have gone far.
I'm sure he did. Would have.
But life goes on. And more importantly, business goes on. I need you to act as head until the board decides on a replacement. That doesn't bother you?
No, not at all.
No hard feelings about Bob getting the spot over you?
Oh, no. I believe the best man always wins in the end.
Good. Well, you better get back out there. It's been a madhouse today, and I need that reorganization report Benham promised me. I don't know these sailboats. I think my Cessna is safer anytime.
You fly a plane?
Every weekend.
So it's interesting, it's a little throwaway line about the plane, and at this point in the film, as I've alluded to, there was a lot of back and forth about exactly how this film was going to end. And again, just to say, films are complicated. There are a lot of people involved, and they go through a lot of revision. But by now, in the film, Michael and I have really we've put our stamp on the front rather than the front to the back. What I mean is always being aware of where is this arrow going to hit. And the arrow has to hit with his victory. And if you punish him, you punish the audience for their enjoyment. So that was just not going to happen. And the comment about the Cessna, as you'll see, or you've probably seen, those mechanics really come into play if you're thinking about what are the clues that will lead the police to arrest and ultimately punish this man. To me, it's what are the steps that he's going to take to seal his victory. And the victory is a man who's reclaimed his power. So the Cessna is really important. But here he is talking about his lighter. So now we'll spend some time in the film. See also, and here's where Liz McGovern is such a wonderful actress, just really playing this so beautifully. As she begins to suspect something is off, and obviously she's doing that so we in the audience can keep this part of it going. Who did it? Will he get caught? And where is that lighter? And here it is.
I took it upon myself to make some changes. For all
Great office, huh? So that was the back of the office, again, that Howard built out. It's quite a view. But as I said at the beginning of all of this, that was so important to us, that this world not be set in little cubicles in an office, but be against a backdrop, a real backdrop.
I had the wrong take on you, Marshal. I had you pegged as one of George Brewster's Hold the Fort boys.
It's odd now to see all the homeless people here in Grand Central, but in fact, we didn't do this. This wing of Grand Central Station in that era was filled with homeless. And in fact, it was kind of, not kind of, it was tolerated by the transit police and by the city of New York. It was a safe shelter, and it kind of kept the homeless in one area of the station instead of wandering around the station. And it seems strange now, but that was absolutely the way it was.
People, let's get rid of some of them.
On mine and regular Coke for me, please. Somebody left a lighter in that rental car. George Brewster says he didn't rent a car. The rental company says he did.
Whatever, I don't know.
Wanda, get Holtz, Kim, and Hartwell into my office at 3 o'clock this afternoon. You know, Graham, it's funny. Until today, I'd never really noticed you.
We should get rid of anybody that doesn't put the company first.
Now this man is good. He's got something to tell all of us.
Miss Anderson, listen. It's not personal. It's just we really need to establish this alibi.
An alibi? I told you he was there at my house Saturday night all night. What can I say?
Oh, okay.
I have to go to work.
Yeah, listen, I want to give...
So I don't know if it's of great interest, but this is the only sequence in the film shot on a Steadicam for obvious reasons. It's outside. It was actually a pickup shot. It was done after principal photography. And we just couldn't possibly do this with the equipment we've been using before, which was a dolly, a Lumicrane, a hothead. So there you go. That's a Steadicam shot, and it works very well.
Hi, Stella.
Yeah, as I said at the beginning, John Dunn, who did the costumes, he did a fabulous job. You can see Michael now he's in darker suits, and Stella is actually in darker colors. So there's a whole team at work here to kind of help darken this film, to kind of bring it home at the end, and it's across all the departments.
Stella, does George Brewster ever come into the office? Because we just got a package and I don't see his address here and Oh, Mr. Marshall, there's a message from Mr. Jones.
Thank you.
The gears move, so there it is. Actually, when there was a lot more of it when this film was shot, for some reason, it had a release date, and the release date was very, very soon after the end of principal photography. I don't remember exactly how long it was. It was obviously shot on film at that time. Believe it or not, there were no digital editing machines. We used one of the very first systems, which used beta tapes to cut with a computer. And it was very cumbersome, very time-consuming. And in fact, the film had two editors. Bill Anderson, a fabulous editor who I worked with many, many times. Absolutely, I always felt more than confident going off to work, knowing that Bill would be cutting. It was always a pleasure to come into the cutting room, and often I'd be watching stuff going, oh my God, who shot that? That's fantastic. And that was really because of the way Bill would energize sequences and cut them together. In this case, we had two editors because sequence by sequence, and I would run back and forth from room to room. And then every couple of days, we'd put it together and screen it and, see what we needed to work out. It was a novel experience for me. I think these guys work together incredibly well. It's seamless. And I had the benefit of two really, really sharp editors. And they sure saved me through a lot of this stuff, tracking this cigarette lighter. There it is, once again. So that chord just reminded me, I haven't much mentioned Gary Chang, and a fabulous composer that I met on this film. When we were cutting it, again, we were trying to move very quickly, and as filmmakers do, we would temp in music and temp it in to try and kind of get the rhythm of the film, get the cut of the film. I know that Stan Getz, and it just had this fabulous, playful kind of magical brew feeling. And so we temped out a lot of the film with Stan Getz. It seemed like the right period. It was playful. It was, just a little demonic, but approachable, warm. It had all of those qualities. And then, of course, came the problem, which often happens with films when you tempt them out. You kind of get attached to the sound of it, and it's very hard to let go of. And you have to make sure that the final music is going to kind of do for you what that temp track is going to do. That's kind of worn a groove in your head. In any event, I came across Gary Chang. He sent some stuff in, and I thought it was great that he got that. He got that quality of this kind of slightly off playfulness, using a lot of really unique instrumentation, kind of a jazz feel that Stan Getz had suggested, but very much his own tone. I think that's kind of a marimba thing there, kind of bubbling under the surface. And everything just a little bit off in just the best musical way. And he was able, I think, to very artfully turn that from the themes at the beginning to this kind of tension stuff that's going on now in the last third of the film. So Gary was also very, very much in tune to that double tone of the film, the darkness and the comic. And I think that's really in the score that he did, which is pretty wonderful. He recorded it with, I think, the Turtle Island Quartet. It's for a long time it was floating around. It's a CD. It's a great CD. Really good music all on its own, but did wonders for the film.
Pick it up right away.
So it is sort of interesting, as I've alluded to right from the beginning. There was this kind of split in those of us making the film. Michael and I, and kind of my group, Paul, Howard, Bill Anderson, and Gary, all these folks, really making a film that was absolutely going to end with Graham getting away with this. And others, again, on the producing side, who were never fully convinced that that was going to be okay. So they were always hedging their bets and kind of watching over what we were doing. And I'm very much trying to, yes, kind of keep the suspense, will he get caught, won't he get caught, going, but at the same time really trying to keep the audience connected to Michael, again, to that inner drama in him. And very, very much dedicated and absolutely planning that this film will end with him ascending to the pinnacle of power, to, quote, getting away with it. But getting away with it was not the issue. It was reclaiming, as I say, his power, that was the movie and that would be the audience's pleasure. So as we're filming all these sequences, I guess you might say my group is making one movie, but there's another movie that's hovering out there with Michael being let off in handcuffs, and I'm thinking, that just cannot be, and hoping against hope that we're never going to film it, that's not something that I want to be recorded on film. I have a very strong idea of where this is going, and Michael has a very strong idea, and we're going to push this film to that one inevitable conclusion. And it is, of course, what you're going to see at the end of the film. I've included on the Blu-ray the alternate ending, or what became the alternate ending. It was the ending that was screened at first, in which he does get captured, and it really didn't work. Nobody liked it. And so we were then allowed to complete the film the way we first envisioned it.
Graham.
I think you have my lighter.
I called the cop. I called Laker. He's coming.
You betrayed me.
Graham, you killed your wife, didn't you? You did. You killed your wife. You killed Benham. That's why he was asking me all those questions. That's why I couldn't remember anything on Saturday. Oh, God.
You betrayed the magic.
Magic. Magic. I trusted you.
Give me the lighter.
Felt his power. She'd never testify against him now. And besides,
in a way that eventually makes you love him. I got to say, without being too overreaching, it is like Richard III and Queen Anne, you know? He's killed her husband, and he woos her and marries her, and that's what Michael could do here. So this is, of course, the ending in which some folks thought, yeah, he's about to get arrested, but in my version, in fact, and the version that we were always intending the audience to see, if the scene were to continue, he would be in handcuffs. But it doesn't continue. We we cut it off, and that little bit used to happen a little earlier in the film, and we were able to, in the editing room, to come up with what I guess we have to call an alternate ending, but in fact it was the ending that I always envisioned. I just never got to shoot. So the way we did it was by taking bits of stock footage, by picking up on the clue of the head of the company and his Cessna, and with this wonderful piece of stock footage and some sound work, we were able to, for, how shall I say it, without spending any more of the production's money, just providing some sound effects. Very nicely imply that
Abracadabra. Shalikazam. Bye-bye, baby.
There it goes. And that solved the end of the film. And Michael was insistent on that last little turn from the window, and he very rightly reminded me that the audience would need to leave the theater with that image of him, and the confluence of just a great bunch of filmmakers who all were excited. Oh, there's Samuel Jackson right there. Samuel L. Jackson, Ulysses. He was the card dealer. Now I got, oh gosh, and we cut the scene out. Well, there you go. In any event, just revisiting the work of all these talented people is really a treat, and that everybody was so on board with that inner story that excited Michael when I first met him in London and talked to him about the film, that he wanted to play this man, and the man who grew in touch with that part of himself, and a little gift to the audience of enjoying it and making sure that they enjoyed it, and doing something that was both dark and comic really lit him up, and I think we're all the happy beneficiaries of that wonderful energy.